Okay. First of all, hello, welcome, happy Elul. We are in the most incredible month. It's the final month of the year, and always in Judaism and Yiddishkeit and everything, we find that the last or the end of something, we always put a lot of energy into. We put a lot of energy into Havdalah. We make a siyum at the end of learning. When we complete the year, we put a lot of effort into Elul. Last month of the year, because how we end something is going to provide the fuel for how we launch the next thing. So just as Havdalah, the way we do Havdalah is going to impact our coming week, and the siyum that we make on our learning is the fuel that motivates us to get ready to start something new. So too is what we do during the month of Elul is designed to help us launch our new year when we start with Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So as we get started, in order to really start well, we need to end well. What they say, all's well that ends well. So the year is based on this. There's a beautiful idea that says that during the month of Elul, we can, and when I say atone, I mean fix. We can fix and have the ideal version of what we really wanted all the other months of the year to be like. So that when we say like, oh, I should have done this, I should have been doing like this, I should have, whatever the woulda, coulda, shouldas, that the month of Elul is the fix it. It's where we project as much as we can into our personal reality, what we would like to see, what we'd like to be, and what we would like to do. And that we have a month then, and then it retroactively fixes everything. It's a great idea. It's a wonderful way. This doesn't mean that we coast normally for the year and then try to make up everything in the month of Elul, but it does mean that we do have this time that we can focus on in a more intense way. So I was thinking about, because I know I've talked about this before, I get very caught up in the things, all the negative things that are going on in the world, and I read too much and see too much and think too much and whatever, get myself kind of all twisted. So I thought, well, what would I want to be thinking about? What I want to be occupying my mind? Like, well, guess who's in charge of that? Me. So during the month of Elul is where we get to set the stage more intentionally about what do I want to think about? What do I want to do? How do I want to act? How I want to be? And instead of making a resolution of like, this is how I'm going to be for the future and I'm never making this mistake again, it's like not to even take it like that, but just literally day by day of today, right now, what would I like to be thinking about? What would I like to be focusing on? What, just literally, and it reminds me of, when we were growing up, remember we had whatever channels we could watch on TV. And for us, it was 2, 4, 7, and 9. And 6 was the public TV, and that didn't come in so well. And actually channel 2 didn't really come in so well. So basically it was 4, 7, and 9. Those are your channels. Those are your options. Now, you can download whatever you want. We have a free trial for Amazon Music Unlimited, which means that our kids were here because we had access to a cappella songs during the 3 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, where you can listen to a cappella music, even if you can't listen to instrumental music. And so we had all these songs. It's just like, play this, play that, whatever you want. And we do this in music. We have this for shows, now you can just watch whatever you want. You can listen to whatever you want. You can hear whatever you want. You can read whatever you want. There's no excuse for not putting that same idea into our heads about ourselves. It's like, I can think what I want. I can put my attention to whatever I choose. And I don't need to be a passive victim of channel 2, 4, 7, and 9. And I have a choice, and I can create whatever playlist I want. And so this is the month of Elul, is to create the playlist of what do I want the day to feel like? What do I want the month to feel like? And it's a limited enough amount of time that it doesn't have to feel like an overwhelming, I'm making changes, just say what you want. Hello, Ruthie, it's so good to see you.
You too.
So so this is the month of Elul. So we have this tremendous opportunity to set the month of Elul apart. We have something else, which is that starting on Rosh Chodesh Elul, the shofar started being blown. So if you found yourself in the synagogue on the on Rosh Chodesh morning, on Monday morning, you heard the shofar blown after Shachrit, after the morning service. So, every year I say this, and every year I think, well, this is going to be the last year it's going to be true. I learned something new about the shofar and the blowing in Elul that I really want to share with you. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is why is the shofar blown starting Rosh Chodesh Elul? So anybody have any thoughts, ideas of what you've heard? And they're not going to be none of them are wrong. This is going to be building on our understanding and just bringing more to it. Just as an aside, before I say that, when we were on our road trip with our kids and grandkids, we saw Rocky Mountain mountain goats on the, off the highway. And, usually I see that shape in a shofar. So it's like a walking shofar was these Rocky Mountain sheep. So never tip your hat and stop to talk a while. I'm just gonna, okay. So anyway, so the shofar that we have is like, so what have you heard as to the reason we blow the shofar in starting the month of Elul? Dorothy, yes.
To wake us up and get us ready to think about our lives and our decisions, to wake us up.
Great. Okay, wake up call, the best alarm is God's alarm clock, right? Okay, to wake us up. And then there's all sorts of beautiful verses that say, wake up those who are slumbering, wake up. So now the truth is when we hear the shofar, nobody is physically asleep. So clearly we're talking about a different kind of wake up, a wake up call. Like when people say wake up and smell the coffee, they don't literally mean wake up and get out of your bed. It means to wake up, that there's a sense of slumber, that we are all walking around half asleep. So there's that idea. So we're going to build on that. Anything else about why the shofar? Why not a trumpet? Why does it have to be a shofar? Any other thoughts? Anybody else hear anything or know anything about it at all? Anything else? Okay. All right. So yes, Dorothy.
Well, the discordant quality of the shofar really is very, really, you can't miss it. Like, whoa, what is that? Like something's happening here.
Very good. Very good. Okay, now these ideas are from a class that I heard from, and it just went out of my head, not from me. But some of this is going to be woven in with some thoughts that I've had, additional thoughts, and I'll remember his name. I'm sorry, I should have written it down. But just when you said it's a discordant sound, it's not like a trumpet. It's not like a violin. It's not like the dinner bell or something like that. Those would get your attention also. In fact, when you set your alarm, like on the alarm on your phone, you can set what kind of sound you want it to have. You want it to be loud enough and disturbing enough that you wake up, but not so much that it bothers you. But there's something about the sound of the shofar. It's discordant. What other qualities does it have? If you have a good shofar blower. It's really loud. Okay. So now when something is really loud, it says there is a wake up and get moving, but there's also something else that happens when you hear something that loud, which is you stop. So there is a stopping and a wake up at the same time. So in one way, we are turning off something. We're stopping one thing, but we're waking up something else. And so that's what the shofar does. It's going to have a change. It's going to be a change agent mechanism. It's going to say, stop this, but start that. So we're going to find out what's the stop and what's the start. Now you could say, well, it's just stop sinning and do good things. Okay, that you could say that, but we're going to talk about it in a much more profound way. So we're going to go back and say, so why does it start on Rosh Chodesh Elul? You could say that we do have a tradition that 30 days before a holiday, we start getting ready for it. Usually that takes the form of learning about it. So 30 days before Pesach, you start learning the halachas of Pesach. 30 days before, I don't know, whatever, you start learning about that. But you don't ever practice. We don't say 30 days before Pesach, start eating matzah and, to like get ready for matzah eating. We don't say 30 days before Hanukkah, start lighting your menorah. So why is it that 30 days before Rosh Hashanah, we're blowing the shofar? It's like, why is it 30 days before doing something specific like that, which is about this wake up call? It says, but there has to be some reason, again, that it's the shofar, that it's the first of Elul when it starts, and what is it telling us to do? So here's what we know. says that when Moshe went up for the third and final time to Mount Sinai to come back and bring down the second set of tablets, says the shofar was blown in the camp. It's like, why did they blow the shofar when he went up to Mount Sinai for the third time? It says it was a reminder to the people, don't fall into the trap you fell into the first time Moshe went up to Mount Sinai. How did that end? Not so well. Okay, that ended with how did that end?
The breaking
The golden calf, big mistake. Says don't do that. So the shofar specifically on the 1st of Elul in the camp was a warning, a wake-up call warning reminder to the Jewish people not to fall into the trap of the golden calf. Okay, so now we're going to look at the sin of the golden calf from a completely different perspective, because the final forgiveness for the sin of the golden calf, the focus of the sin of the golden calf is what makes up the bulk of the Yom Kippur service. Okay, the bulk of the Yom Kippur service is where we repeat the 13 attributes of God, and we have God's forgiveness, and the words that we are literally saying are the words that are from God forgiving Moshe and the Jewish people for the sin of the golden calf. So that's really like the underlying motif that's going on. And we want to know is like, why is this such a big deal? Why is this such a huge focus for us? So let's go back to the sin of the golden calf. If you were to describe the sin of the golden calf, what would you say the sin was? What was that sin? What was that sin of the golden calf? What did they do? Marla, what did they do?
praying to idols. They were praying
Yeah.
to idols.
Great. So they worshiped the golden calf, okay, which was an idol instead of Moshe, but instead of God, we'll just kind of the general category of idolatry. So we need to, that was the result. But what caused the problem? How did they get to that, Etta? How did they get to that?
They lost their trust and love of God, and they
Okay.
felt he didn't love them anymore, and he was they didn't deserve his love. I don't know what the psychological part was, but
Okay.
it was almost like adultery.
So you're very good. So anything having to do with idolatry, it's kind of the same words. Anything that has to do with idolatry is often put together with adultery, that it's a betrayal of the relationship. We're going to go in a slightly different direction and back it up to say, how did this come to be? Why on that day? Why did they decide that day to start worshiping the golden calf? How did they get to it? They were doing fine. It says they were counting. And in the Torah, it says, and this is, if you have a chumash, this goes all the way back to the parsha of Kitisa, and that is on page 495. And I'm sorry, we're going to go back there. Page 493, which is chapter 32, verse 1 of Exodus. And it says the people saw that Moses had delayed in descending the mountain. And the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, rise up, make it for us gods that will go before us. For this man Moses, who brought us up from Egypt, we do not know what became of him. So there is a question about, is this the gods to replace Moses as their leader, or is this about God? So that's really a different question. We're going to focus on to be a technical problem, a logistical problem, which is that the people said they saw that Moses had delayed in coming down from the mountain. It says, why did that happen? What does that mean? They saw that he was delayed. Was he really delayed? And the answer is he wasn't delayed. He told them that he would be gone for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he would be back. So what happened? So I always read, it's like, so they counted wrong. You know, that could happen. I have to say, it's happened to me when I've gone to somebody, God forbid, was sitting Shiva. And for some reason in my little head, 7 days seems like if the funeral was on, let's say a Monday, it seems like then that the Shiva should go through the following Monday for a week, because 7 days is a week, except that's not, because the day of Shiva counts as the first day. So it would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I showed up at my friend's house on what I thought was the 7th day, and she was just coming back from an errand, and she was like, nice to see you, but why are you here? I'm like, came to make a shiva call. She's like, oh, that ended yesterday. So one could count wrong. So then you have to wonder, well, that's just me counting wrong. A whole nation counts wrong. What does that mean that they thought he was coming back a different day? So here is the insight. It says, he left in the morning. He went up in the morning. Moses went up in the morning. The Jewish people thought that was the first day. They counted that day as the first day. And so when they counted, they were then expecting him that was day one. They counted 40 days from then, that morning, and then when he didn't come back, that's when they panicked. So you could say, and for that, they get themselves in such huge trouble. Doesn't that seem a little picky? It's like, just because they counted wrong and they got off track. So what does that mean? That they thought the day started that the first day was the day he left. It says, this is what it means. When we celebrate a Jewish holiday, when does the holiday start?
Sunday.
It starts the night before, right?
Sunset the night before.
It starts the sunset the night before. And this goes to what we know from creation, where it says, Vayihi erev, vayihi voker, Yom Rishon. It was evening and it was morning, the first day. The days from God's perspective start in the evening. The days from human perspective, the ordinary civilization, you talk to people and you say, I'm coming over on Tuesday. And if you show up on Monday night, they'll say, today's not Tuesday. But if you say to somebody in Israel, I'm coming over on Yom Shlishi or whatever, you don't know if that means on Monday night or if it means on Tuesday morning, because the day starts the night before. So our time starts the evening before. And when the Jewish people left Egypt, not only did we get the Jewish calendar, which set our whole framework with the Jewish months of Nisan and the first month, etc., we switched to God time. We switched to God time. God time is the day starts the evening before. So when the Jewish people said, oh, the day started, the first day was in the morning when he left, it's like, no, we switched. Don't you remember? Like, have you already forgotten? You went back to Egyptian time rather than Jewish time. Now, there's a joke about Jewish Standard Time, which means being late, but this is a different kind of Jewish time that has to do with starting in the evening, and that's God's time. This was the critical mistake that they made. So you might still say, okay, so we switched from night to morning. We'll just give a little example of how we know it's switched. When we look at the different services that we have the morning, afternoon, and evening service. And we say that each one of them was created and started by one of the patriarchs. If the first, so you would expect the first service then to be started by our first patriarch. And if the night is the beginning of the new day, then Abraham should have started the Mariv, the evening service. Isaac should have started the morning service, and Jacob should have started the afternoon service, except that's not what we say. We say Abraham started the morning service, Isaac started the afternoon, and Jacob started the evening, because Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, as great as they were not on Jewish Standard Time of starting the night before. When God gives the command to sacrifice, to offer Isaac and to bind him, it says that Abraham got up early in the morning to do this, that he acted with alacrity, because that was the beginning of the day. Not because you can't do a sacrifice at night, because that was the beginning of the day. But once the Jewish people are going to be a nation and we're getting a whole other system, we're going into God time. And the question is why? What difference does it make? And just for the record, the women did not miscount. Women did not miscount, and they did not lose trust, because they were oriented towards God time and not towards the rest of people time. What's the difference? So now some of you might be night owls, and that's great, but normal human physical energy, which I lose sight of this every single day, is When do you have the most physical energy? In the morning when the sun's up? In fact, there's all sorts of things written that says, don't look at your emails until after 10 o'clock a.m. Get all the bulk of your work, get done early in the morning, because your physical energy is greatest in the morning and then wanes as the day goes by. As I said, I forget this every single day when I plan things that am supposed to be accomplishing. And when I plan for those things, I plan my time as if I'm going to have the same energy to work on something at 9 p.m. as if I was working on it at 9 a.m. And guess what? That does not work, because I definitely do not have the same energy. It says physical energy is greatest in the morning and wanes. Same thing with our lives. Now, we work out, we take in shore, we exercise, we eat right, we do everything we can to also preserve our energy and our strength as we age. Anybody who takes care of little kids, once they start running around, a 2-year-old's energy, it's like, can I get some of that? Like, they just run around, and when grandparents or whoever takes care of little kids, it's like, oh my gosh, where do they get the energy? Like, can I just plug in? So the physical body, not just during the day, but in youth and when we come into the world, have a tremendous amount of energy and strength. They're at the top of their game. And as we get older, we may be able to slow it down, but it's the real outliers who have incredible amount of energy, stamina, strength, etc., as we age. So whether it's the day going like this, or whether it's our age going like this, in the physical realm, it starts off great in the morning and then it goes down. That's the way of the world. The world of the neshama is different. Where a person is spiritually, how does it work spiritually? It says when a child comes into the world, they're not good. They're innocent. They're not good. To become good takes training, takes wisdom, takes effort. So that when a child is young, they are trained. They're supposed to be trained and blossom and grow. And they start off very weak, actually, spiritually. And as a person matures, which is why we have at bar and bat mitzvahs, where you're considered mature enough to be able to be responsible for your decisions, you're that. And then when you become 20, you become more responsible. And as a person ages, they become stronger. They have the potential to become stronger. So the day or the life starts weak, like the night, and gets brighter as it goes forward. That's called God's counting time. That it's when we focus too much on the physical pattern that we lose sight, because then we're trying to stay oriented in that way instead of what's my spiritual development. I have to say, it's one of the things I was very impressed with when my grandmother was at Shalom Park. Some of the activities that are there honestly seem like they're just like trying to, give people something to do. And I'm not opposed to that. That's amazing. But when the rabbis teach classes, my grandmother went to Rabbi Meyer's classes, to Rabbi Zuckerman's classes. She went to those things and we had wonderful discussions, and there was spiritual growth. We talked about things. It was kind of funny, as the granddaughter talking to her about her parenting skills of my mother. That was kind of funny, of like what her belief system had been and how she had changed over the years, and growth. So the growth that we have spiritually is always going up. And so it starts small. It starts at night. It starts with the new moon. It's little and it goes up. The physical realm starts out strong and goes down. It says those are two very different mindsets that lead you to making different choices about how we use our time, how we use our energy, and what our focus is. So when it says that the Jewish men were counting wrong because they counted the morning that Moses went up as the first day, it means they forgot that their system was supposed to be a spiritual-based system and not a physical-based system. And the women did not do it. Why not? And here's the interplay between Rosh Chodesh. So Rosh Chodesh, the new month, is at the time, is what are we celebrating? We are celebrating when it's dark. When does the month begin? It doesn't begin at the full moon. It's not when the sun is up. It's when it's the darkest, when it looks like we are very weak. That's when it starts. So a woman's orientation is, I know that's the right way to look at things because my body tells me that. I'm oriented toward that. I don't get confused. Now I could say, I'm confused. I'm a woman, I'm confused. I know a lot of other women who are confused, but honestly, a lot of that is because we live in a world that is oriented towards the sun and not the moon, is oriented towards the day and not the night. And we're the night moon people. And the rest of the world is the sun daytime people. So the truth is that we operate in both worlds, which is why the Jewish calendar is oriented the way it is. If it was only lunar, we would be like the Muslims and our holiday. You think we don't know when the holidays are, they're early, they're late, we don't even know what we're doing. It's like, it's oh so early, so early. Imagine Ramadan, which is like moving around I don't even know how much it moves, but it moves a lot because they only have a lunar calendar. As opposed to the secular calendar, which is fixed and it's based on the sun. The Jewish calendar is a blend of both because that's who we are, but the emphasis is on the moon. The emphasis is on the moon. The emphasis is on night, week, going stronger to the day as opposed to the day and waxing and going into the night. So it says that the men forgot and they counted wrong. This wasn't like you counted wrong, you're so bad and this is going to lead to idolatry. Why did it lead to idolatry? Because what is idolatry after all? Idolatry is taking something physical and elevating it as if it were spiritual. You take this lump of gold and you start worshiping it. You're worshiping that mode of thinking instead of staying, as they say today, staying in your lane, of staying in the place where the Jewish people are oriented. That's why it led to such a big disaster, that it wasn't just, oh, he's late. It was, we are thinking incorrectly. So the shofar was a warning to the Jewish people when Moshe goes up the third time to come down with the tablets and the full forgiveness is remember who we are and remember the shofar. And as we said before, when Dorothy said that there's this discordant sound that on one hand wakes you up and on the other hand stops you. So that's what we have, is we have that juxtaposition of what is it I'm supposed to stop. So what I maybe am supposed to be stopping or slowing down is my over involvement with my physical concerns, not stop them completely. We're supposed to eat, we're supposed to have nice clothes, we're supposed to exercise, we're supposed to take the time to do all the things that we need to do as physical beings. But it needs to be within the framework of the spiritual reality that we're trying to live in. So we're supposed to quiet that down, slow that down, but wake up the neshama, the poor neshama, which gets put into sleep mode. You know, you see that on your computer screen, going into deep sleep. That shows up like on, I'm like trying to reboot, it's like, whatever is in deep sleep. I'm like, no, wake up, like wake up your computer, wake up your phone. Like, what does that mean? So it's there, like the programming is there, but if it's not being, if you're not clicking on it, it just says like, oh, I guess you don't need me, I'm going to sleep. So the neshama, it's not that the neshama is sleeping, it's been put on the back burner. And so the body is being told, you need to stop. The neshama, I'm clicking on you. And that is the time, and the shofar is about that. So now again, why a shofar? So why was that the shofar? I mean, the Jewish people had trumpets. We know that they had instruments of gold, because in the description of the building of the Mishkan, they didn't have to, there wasn't just the shofar as an instrument. That's like, it's the crudest instrument. It is. It's really disgusting. I mean, I don't know if have you ever been to a shofar making factory, the way they make the shofar? It's so gross. I mean, I'm gonna just generalize here. Little boys tend to like it. I'm sure there are girls who do, but usually the girls are like, oh. So it has to be there's a lot of gunk inside the horn that has to be all pulled out. And it's kind of disgusting. What can I say? And it's like, okay, this is holy, this is holy. And then you have to pierce the hole in it to be able to blow it. And then the sound it makes is so riveting. It goes like right through you. If you have a good shofar blower, the sound that it makes just goes right through you. What is it that's resonating? It says that shofar is us. It's like, get out the gunk. Okay, it's gunk. It's a shofar. It is a shofar. And what makes the sound is an incredible controlled breath. Now, I can't even whistle, let alone blow a shofar. So I'm always very much inspired by and amazed by people who can blow a shofar. But the precise effort, the placement of the mouth, and the breath that it takes, says this is turning the shofar from such a physical thing, which always has the potential to be a shofar. When it's sitting on top of those Rocky Mountain goats, whatever, it's a shofar in waiting. It's just waiting in the wings to turn into a shofar. It says that's us. It's like, we have that potential. We have the potential to have a neshama. And neshama, which means soul, is related to the word neshima, which means breath. So that when we were created, it says that God blew into us nishmat chayim, the breath of life. So it's as if we are taking the shofar and using it as a reenactment of our own creation. Blowing into the shofar is a reminder of the neshama that is what makes that shofar something to behold, and not just the horn of an animal. So we could be a person. It's fine to be a Rocky Mountain sheep. It's amazing if you want to be a Rocky Mountain sheep, or do you want to be a shofar? So it's a question of what do you want to be? So we want to be a shofar. We want to be mostly animated and focused and directed based on our neshama, that neshima. And so literally each day of the month of Elul, that breath is being blown into the shofar as a reminder, neshama, wake up, my neshama. The body, not that I'm not going to be taking care of it. I am going to take care of it. It's just not going to be my main focus, because when it becomes my main focus, I'm going to end up getting very, very distracted. If we take a look at how much time, it's hard being a person. I mean, I know animals have to go hunt their food or whatever they have to do, and they spend a lot of time doing that. And we think like, oh, I don't have to do that. But the truth is, oh, yes, we do. Because if you think about the time we spend, we have to earn the money to buy the food. And then we have to have a shelter, and then we have to clean it, and we have to pay for it. And then you have to mow your lawn, and then you have to do your laundry, and then you have to exercise, you have to cook your food. If you think of how much time do we spend taking care of our physicality? And again, it's all time that we need to spend, but then we can overdo it. Yes, you need to buy clothes, but how long does it need to be surfing on Amazon and finding stores and sales and everything else? And how long do we do all of these things? How much time? And with what concentration? Like, what am I doing it for? So even when we're involved in physical pursuits, of having a spiritual orientation toward them switches it on the kind of, if you can picture like a, I'll say like a spreadsheet, 2 columns, physical activity, spiritual activity. Is there a way to take a physical activity and move it into the spiritual column? And the Torah tells us yes, because that was the other reason for blowing the shofar as a reminder to the Jewish people in the desert, is specifically about the bringing down of the Torah. The Torah is going to be your path, your key for how to take your physical existence, which is incredibly important and key and central and everything else, because God created us that way. But to have it be connected so that it stays in the spiritual column, even when I am involved in something physical. It could have been, if they really wanted to have a wake-up call and have let's just have only spirituality, somebody could have been singing. They could have had somebody like an opera star. The Levites were known for their singing voices. They could have had the, wake up song, don't be lazy song. There could have been any number of things that could have been done to wake people up. And it could have been just all breath, but it's not all breath. It's breath through the physicality of the shofar. That's a reminder of like why we are here and what we are doing and the Jewish orientation. Anybody who thinks that the Torah is designed just for a completely ethereal, spiritual, otherworldly existence, missed the boat. And anyone who thinks this is like telling you a bunch of things to do, also missed the boat. The goal is to have this combination. The shofar represents what the Torah does. Marla.
Well, when I think of the shofar, I think of that sound getting me physically ready. And when you were talking about physical to me is the action that gives me the wisdom. And so, it's an action or getting you the wisdom to do what you need to do to get to where you need to be.
Great,
So
thank you.
it's the physical part as well to me.
Great, great. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to elaborate on what you're saying. That, people want to have a spiritual life, but I like, even in the English word spiritual is the word ritual. Okay, so the way you spell spiritual has the word ritual in it. And there are rituals, and what are rituals are exactly what you just said. Rituals are physical actions that inspire us, help us, direct us, focus us on it, to help us achieve something that we're trying to have penetrate and change us internally. It's very hard to penetrate. So I'll give you a home cooking tip that I learned from reading an article, more than one article. Did you know that when you marinate meat, it doesn't really do anything? That the marinade cannot really penetrate. And basically, if you have something acidic, it just kind of breaks down the meat fibers, especially chicken. And that when it says marinate for 24 hours, it's not doing anything except making you feel happy. That it's not physiologically, it doesn't go in. Even we talk about, lotion, it says, oh, it absorbs and, it'll blah, blah. It's like, how far does it go in? It can only go in so far, thank God. Thank God. That's the problem with like nanoparticles, is they go in more than they should. But we have to be careful because things actually don't really go in. It's like, how do you have a spiritual something penetrate this physical being here? It's like we have to do something in the physical realm that allows it to transfer. Osmosis doesn't work. I'm always amazed when I meet people who grew up in Jewish neighborhoods, surrounded by Jewish people. They didn't really ever do anything Jewish, but they always felt like I didn't really need to do anything Jewish because I lived around Jewish people. And then they wake up and find out they know nothing about Judaism. Somebody who grew up and never lit Shabbos candles, didn't really know anything about anything. It's like, how is that possible? You were surrounded by it. It's like, you can be surrounded by something, but unless you do something to internalize it, it's like Teflon. It can only marinate so far. That's only going to get you so far. It surrounds you, so you maybe have more opportunities to grab onto it, but it doesn't make it go in. And our challenge is that people walk around with an artificial sense that something went in. They're like, oh, it was so inspiring. It was so spiritual. It felt amazing. And it's like, and then what? What changed? Oh, it just felt so good. It was so interesting. It was so inspiring. It's like, okay, that's called regesh. That means how it feels. This doesn't mean what it does. What did it do? And it's like, well, it didn't really do anything, or at least it didn't last. It's like, well, that's like marinate. You marinated in it, but guess what? It didn't do anything because you have to do something with it. So until something is done with it, it's not going to go in. So the shofar is like that. You can look at a Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep all you want. It's not going to turn it into a shofar until you put in the effort. You put in the effort to get out the blockage. You put in the effort to puncture the hole. You put in the effort to blow and invest yourself, because ultimately what is breath? That's my life. Something we say with their dying breath. Breath is life. When I invest myself into what I am doing from my breath. Now, I happen to be a big fan of violin. If somebody wanted to really inspire me spiritually, they'd play the violin. But that's not breath. So breath is a whole other thing, and it's all about breath. It's not even like the flute. There's no fingering, there's no trombone, there's nothing like that. It's all breath. That is the definition of whether you're going to get sound or not. It's like, how are you gonna get sound out of the shofar? How are you gonna get a spiritual experience out of this human life we have? It's gonna be with your life's effort. Now, this doesn't mean with your last breath, but it means that it has to be involved and engaged. So that perhaps is another level of reminder of the shofar is it takes effort. It takes actual effort. People want a shortcut. It's like, I'm sitting down here in the study that was my son's room. Now it's family room, my son's room when he visits. But we used to have our computer down here when we had dial-up. Remember dial-up for whatever? And you would sit there and it'd make all these horrible sounds. And then you sit there and wait and wait and wait. And then it would finally connect maybe. And then you would have to reboot or do some other thing. I never knew what I was doing. And we would sit there. Now, I was on a Zoom call with our designer person in Israel, Motzei Shabbos, a couple of weeks ago, on a free call like we have now, free Zoom call with video across the world. And we disconnected and we're like, oh, this is so annoying. It's like, we are used to, we want it fast, we want it quick and as little effort as possible. I shouldn't have to do anything. Why do I have to do so much? When it comes to spiritual growth, people think of spirituality as like it's so fluffy. And yet it's the most challenging work there is. It's really much more like blowing a shofar, which is the hardest instrument to get a sound out of. So even if we are not ourselves able to blow a shofar, we are trying to breathe life into and put our breath into our spiritual growth and development. And that's the only way it works. What's good is it says that in a way, like God blows a shofar too, because Rosh Hashanah is about being recreated. It's not just the anniversary of creation. We are recreated on Rosh Hashanah. As we said, today's the birthday of the world. We're being recreated, which means that God is blowing new life into us. And, it's like the big remodel. It's like, okay, I've shared with you, I love to watch design shows and especially remodeling. I'm the most intrigued by remodeling rather than new builds. Remodeling, just like, oh my gosh, this place looks like a disaster area and they turned it into something amazing. And it's like, okay, it's being rebuilt and renewed. And when something happens like that, it says that this is the effort of Rosh Hashanah. These home improvements. This is why Lowe's, what else is it? Home Depot, all these things, home improvement. So the word improvement is the root shin pei resh. Shin pei resh, shipur, means to improve. And it's the root of the word shofar. The word shofar means improvement. So it's a call to improvement. It's not a call to perfection. It is a call to improvement. Now, improvements can be small. It can be, after our kids were in Denver last year and we had changed our living room, dining room around and we had moved a lamp. We moved a lamp from the living room into the dining room. And it changed the feel of the whole room because it changed the lighting. And I was joking around with a friend of mine who's actually an interior designer. I said, I redesigned my dining room. And she said, you did? What did you do? I said, we moved a lamp. And it changed everything because there was light in a corner that had been dark. And it changed everything. I mean, it's kind of weird. It's like it changed everything. And sometimes that's what the improvement is. Is there a dark corner? Is there a place that needs more light? It's like that could be the improvement. Some place in my life that needs more light. Some place that needs a little gunk cleaned out of it. Someplace that needs a little bit more breath, a little bit more attention, a little bit more neshama invested in it. And in that way, that's the improvement. So the shofar, not only the sound of it, but what it is itself it's the improvement. It's the call to improvement instrument. It's not the same as a trumpet. It's not the same as a drum. It's not the same as any of these other things. And it represents improvement because the only way when you make an instrument out of metal, so you are taking something and you are shaping it. But when you take a shofar, a horn from an animal, you are improving it. You have to, there's a demolition aspect in it. It's like where they okay, we're having demo day and then we start rebuilding. So the shofar is about demo, taking out the gunk, shaping it up, polishing it, and then we're good to go. Because we are a shofar. So this call, this blast of the shofar beginning on Rosh Chodesh Elul is a reminder to us also of what we can be. I can be literally an instrument of God in this world. And I need to do the work to create myself. When we talk about creation, it says, let us make man. It says, who's us? It means God and we together make ourselves. That we are not just the passive recipients of our life, and we're not the only ones in charge. Together, we make ourselves. This time of year, it says, God is available to help out. It's like you have Angie's List. You can call and find out the best people to help you on your home improvement projects. Is God's available for the home improvement project. And the best home improvement project is ourselves. In fact, we really understand that when people are driven to improve their homes, improve their businesses, improve a product, improve, that God has wired us to really like improvement. One of my favorite shows is, what's it called? I forget. It's with Chip and what's her name? I remember. You can say I'm just mostly focusing. It's what they're in Texas.
Joanna.
Chip and Joanna Gaines. Yes, I love them. Oh my gosh. They take these really ugly places and they make them just so beautiful. People cry. Now I can say it's TV, but people cry when they see how beautiful it is, because human beings are wired to want to see things be improved, but it's mostly supposed to be focused on improving ourselves. So having an improved house is a great, wonderful thing, and I love it, but it's not instead of. It says that it's not instead of, it's in addition to. And if there's an improvement in your home that can make it easier for you to improve yourselves, great. But we shouldn't think, and we can't think, that one will take the place of the other. I know people whose marriages were not great, and they thought that if they improve their house, that their marriage would get better. Usually home improvement projects do the opposite to marriages. It's a lot of stress and strain. Usually doesn't work, does not bring people together. But improving something externally is great, and really only works when it's done in conjunction with improving something internally. The shofar comes to give us that lesson of internal and external improvement. You fix the shofar and then you breathe life into it, just as God took us of a very physical beings and breathed life into us. So the Jewish people are reminded before Moshe goes up, don't count wrong. And it's not just logistics, like, let's synchronize our watches to kind of make sure we are all counting the same way. This is, remember, our day starts at night. The rest of the world starts in the morning, when we start at night. So this was actually kind of funny when Steve and I were first married. We were very fortunate. We had both of our parents in town our whole lives together, married. So Steve's family's custom was their family always got together on Erev Rosh Hashanah. My family's custom was to get together for lunch on first day or second day. But because Steve's family's custom was to get together for Erev Rosh Hashanah, and it was Erev first day, they always called it first day. So it was very confusing when we were first married, of like, we wanted to invite you over for first day. And I'm like, great, that's lunch first day. And Steve was like, no, that means Erev Rosh Hashanah at night. And like, well, which one is it? And we've had this actually with people inviting them for different things and people coming at the wrong times. Like, well, I thought you invited us for second day. But it was like, right, but it was Erev, like the evening, not the lunch the next day. And when you can't make phone calls because it's Yom Tov, it's like, oh, okay. So it's not so easy when the rest of the world is thinking this is the day. But in the Jewish world, it's like, but it started last night. It's like, just tell me what time. Is this a morning or a nighttime thing? So it gets kind of confusing. And it's not just like funny confusing, we get confused. We get confused in what world we are really mostly oriented in and toward. Elul is a reminder of, we start at night. Don't get confused. Moshe's going up, and when he goes up, even though it's the morning, that doesn't count as the first day. That's it's the first day is going to start that evening. He's just going. It doesn't start yet because we're focused that way. So it's funny, it's interesting, it's a socially awkward and all these other things, but it is a huge mindset shift on how we are to be focused. So this is our inspiration for the month of Elul and for the shofar blowing. And even if you are not in synagogue, such as I am not in synagogue on the mornings hearing the shofar blowing, I don't know, go on Google and Google a shofar blast and or set your wake up alarm call to, I don't know if they give you as one of the options, the sound of a shofar, but maybe they would. Or just listen to it or something to try to keep in mind all the things that the shofar truly represents for us and gives us the opportunity for. So we are the people that starts the night before. We go to the next day. And I have to say it's very inspiring because how great is it to know that what really counts in life is our spiritual trajectory, and that is not bound by our physical strength or well-being or anything. I mean, obviously you have to have a certain presence of mind to focus on whatever, but if God forbid, if we're not unconscious or whatever, and in too much pain to think about it, that our trajectory for spiritual growth keeps going and going and going until the day we die, God forbid. Whereas our physical strength to ride that train, that's only going down. There's no other way to do that. But the spiritual train is always has a potential to go up. I'd much rather ride that one and take care of my body to the extent that my soul can have a comfortable as possible ride, but that's not the main goal. So I find that very inspiring, especially being in the life stage of, I think I'm middle, even now, I guess I'm past middle age. If we're living, God willing, to 120, if you're 65, I guess you're on the other side. But Moshe started his job of leading the Jewish people when he was 80. So from 80 to 120, and it says that he only went up. And so we can too. So this is also in opposition to our society's focus on youth and the focus on trying to look young, be young, and worshiping the young. It's like, not that we should go around looking like, I'm not sure what the word is in Yiddish of schleppedick. It's like, okay, I'm not worried about it's like, we don't have to be schleppedick, but an over focus on the youthful aspect of everything, kind of the wrong focus. Youthful is more of an attitude. In fact, there is a prohibition of getting old in Judaism, but it means old not from physical age. It means becoming kind of dried up and tired of spiritual life at whatever age you are. That's called getting old. And I think we all know people. We know people who are old in years chronologically, and they are vivacious and vibrant, and they look forward to each day and to whatever it is they can do, whatever their capacity is, that they have no control over. And then we know people who are younger, who've they're done. And it's we're not allowed to do that. It says we are supposed to, again, this is medical situations notwithstanding, mental health situations notwithstanding, an average person is supposed to be young and be fresh. And that is a spiritual state of being. It is not a measure of how many wrinkles we have or how much soft skin we've got under here. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with our internal attitude. So we ask not only for our year to be renewed, but for us to feel renewed. A sense of renewal and rejuvenation is not that we magically find the fountain of youth. It means that we find the fountain of youthfulness, which comes from the breath of the infinite one who is eternal. And that was how we were created, and that's how the shofar is blown. That's how it is created. And we're given a 30 days of reminder of that this is the true reality. So we're putting the body on the back burner and we're putting the neshama on the front burner. They both stay on the burner, but one is taking precedence over the other. So God willing, we can think about those things over the next 30 days until we get to Rosh Hashanah, and we can feel truly ready for a new year and feel renewed. and that we were really given a renewal of our life. Not just like, okay, we got another year on our contract, but that we actually feel renewed with the energy to live the life that God willing, give us, one of health.
Do you blow the shofar after shachris every day? Is that you do?
I don't. I
After
mean,
the
they do it
morning-
in the
No, but I
synagogue.
mean, in the synagogue after morning service for 30 days.
Yeah,
Okay.
every day except for Shabbos. So Shabbos, we don't blow the
Okay.
shofar, but every other day it is blown. Yeah. And it's, and every year I think like, oh, I should go to services on, in the morning, like, not happening. And that's not on my agenda right now. I don't know, maybe in another chapter it will be, but not happening. But I can think about all the things and still have the mind full. And I'm very visual. So to me, even just picturing the shofar, that's one of the things I love about Judaism and Jewish life, Yiddishkeit, is almost every important idea that we're supposed to really think about and have in mind and activate, we have a symbol for. We have something that you can think about, that you can picture, you can envision, and you can relate to, and we have memories of. Like I can close my eyes. I can't conjure up the exact sound of the shofar, but I know what it feels like. I can think about what it feels like to
Yeah.
have that going through me.
I'm surprised, but glad that you can listen like on the internet. I mean, I'm going to go to YouTube after this and see if I can find some stuff, but I'm surprised that that's allowed.
So so thank you, Della, for pointing that out. I'm not advocating that from a halachic perspective. I don't, first of all, it is a minhag and it's not a halachic thing. It is, so the Sephardim, for example, do not blow every day for 30 days. They do something else. They do slichot. They start the penitential prayers on Rosh Chodesh Elul. Ashkenazim start when we have slichot services, which is Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah, which just saying, notice like when we have slichot, it starts at night because that's when the day really starts. It's as soon as
Right.
you can. So we do have different customs. This was more just for your internal, if you need something
Okay,
like
I hear it.
to resonate with, especially for those of us who grew up with the sound of the shofar and have a memory bank of experiences of, I remember standing as a kid. I remember, being someplace and like everybody being totally still when the shofar is being blown. So that was more for just using the technology to help us relate a little bit better, not necessarily from a halachic perspective. But yeah, I've listened to that and be inspired.
It's also a communal moment. So I know whenever I've been in shul, particularly for the holidays, and like at the end of Nila, I mean, at the very end, when it's blown, I mean, it's such a communal experience. And I think some of that is the memory, because people have the memory of it, and then you're building memories, particularly for the kids. Yeah, it's a very spiritual.
That's a very
Thing.
good point. It's a very good point. And it kind of reminds me, like Lahavdil, not the same thing, but similar thing that like in Israel, when they have the sirens for Yom HaShoah
yeah.
and Yom HaZikaron for Holocaust Remembrance Day and for Remembrance Day, and they blow the siren and everybody gets out of the car and stands still. And everyone hears the same thing. In a way, it's the most, the experience that is the most common of the word communal, that we have it in common, that we probably, if you did a survey of people, like, what do you remember? What does the shofar evoke for you? We would probably have the most common experience. Your family may have a different Rosh Hashanah meal than my family. You might do Yom Kippur fast differently. You might do your Hanukkah celebration differently. Your Seder customs might be different. All these things, there's lots of different ways of doing it. But when it comes to standing, like you said, Della, together for the shofar blast, that is a unifying communal experience when we're all, to the extent possible, since we're all unique people and experience everything in our own way, but it really does kind of touch a peak time, a peak moment for us in a moment of complete solidarity, as close as people can come. I think it's a really good point that brings people together. Great. Any other thoughts or questions at all? Okay, well, thank you very much. So great to see all of you, and looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and Dorothy, I have information for you. If you
Oh,
want to
great.
stay on a moment.
I will.
Okay, so yes, so I'll look forward to seeing you next time, and thank you for joining me, and enjoy the shofar connections for the month of Elul.
Hello?
Hello. Marcia? Oh, okay. Dorothy,
Thank
Dorothy Leapoff, the organization that helped us with our forms for entry into Israel is called Amudim, A-M-U-D-I-M, Amudim.
Okay.
Would
And
you
it's-
say that again, please?
It's called Amudim, A-M-U-D-I-M. It's free. They do it. It's just an act. Plus, I mean, we made a donation to them after they helped us.
It's online.
They,
Okay.
there is, if you look online, I think you can find the contact information, and you
Okay.
can call them, and they will, you might be able to reach them online with an email. I think you can use an email to reach them, but they will help you and make sure and tell you exactly what you need to do to make sure that the
Great.
forms are right. And they were very,
Great.
very
That's
helpful
very
to us.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks.
you
Thank
are
you, Ellen.
welcome. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Ellen. Take care. That was
Sure.
lovely. We're going to go listen to the shofar too.
All right, great. Go listen to that.
Once again, Ellen, thank you. Have a
Thank
good week. Be well.
You too, Dorothy. Take
Take
care.
Thank you.
Both of my Dorothys, take
I
care.
didn't know there were two of us. How exciting.
Yes, there are. There's Dorothy Malman and Dorothy Leapoff.
Wow. Great. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi,
We just-
Dorothy.
We just talked to our grandson Akiva, who just started yeshiva. So he's in a dorm.
Yeah.
And so one of his dorm mates is also Akiva, and there's another Akiva. So I think he said there's like 4 Akivas in his class. So they'll have to figure out some way to differentiate all of them.
Right.
But, yeah, he started. It's unbelievable.
Bye, good to see you, Ellen.
You too, Ruthie. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.
See you all next week. Thank you.
Be
Thank you.
well.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia.